Hi, it's Mr. Ramage, and today we are going to take a look at the Enlightenment philosopher Jean Jacques Rousseau. Jean Jacques Rousseau is most famous for his book, The Social Contract. He wrote lots of other things, but we're going to focus on The Social Contract from 1762. We're going to pull out some main ideas from that work and try to understand his influence not only on the Enlightenment, but also on the events that are going to transpire after the period of Enlightenment. Now, the first line of the book, The Social Contract, says, "Men are born free, yet everywhere are in chains." If you think about the work of John Locke and the idea that man in his natural state is free, Rousseau would agree, but he also says that everywhere we are in chains. Where did the chains come from, and who put those chains on us? That's a really big question. Another question Rousseau raises in The Social Contract is, how can we be free and live together? And that's a really interesting question to think about. And Rousseau looks at the general will or the common good a lot. That laws should be passed and created not to benefit a small number of people, but needs to benefit the majority of people. And that we don't necessarily always have to vote in our own best self-interest. He also talks about the importance of people having that voice and that vote in their government, and believed that a direct democracy would be the best way to achieve this sense of freedom, where everybody would vote on every issue. Now, that's not always realistic, especially in a country of 350 million people like we are today. But it would work in a small environment where there was a small community. This is what Rousseau would prefer. So let's talk about this community that Rousseau writes about. He's looking at people progressing sort of historically, right? We start off as these individual persons, we have small families, our families grow, and after time we begin to live close to other people. That individual persons eventually become a people, a large group of people, or a sovereign. Okay, so that term sovereign is a group of people with their own identity and their own sense of freedom and responsibilities to one another. So John Locke talked about a social contract being an agreement between people and their government. Rousseau talks about a social contract as an agreement between individual persons and this sovereign group of people. And this is a really interesting and a slightly different take than John Locke has. Now, in Rousseau's version of this common good or this sovereign, the individual needs to do things that will benefit everybody else. So in the example here, the individual might say, voting yes does not really benefit me, while the sovereign might say, but voting yes would help the common good and would benefit the most people. Rousseau proposes the idea that in this type of sovereign society, people should not always necessarily vote for what is best for themselves as the individual, but they should rather vote for what's best for the sovereign, for the people. And if we have the mentality of the individual wanting what's best for the group and the group wanting what's best for the individual, then they both sort of feed upon each other and support each other, right? And if we have this mentality where the individual wants what's best for the group and the group wants what's best for the individual, then each supports the other. The individual supports the group while the group supports the individual. And to wrap up our look at Rousseau, he also believed that not only was logic important to your own development, but emotions were important too. A lot of Enlightenment philosophers favored logic and reason, absolutely, and we understand that. But Rousseau also believed that the heart and the emotions were also important. Human beings are emotional creatures. We're not always the most of logical creatures. So he stressed trying to maintain a balance between the two, that emotions and logic were equally important to human development and must be kept in check and in balance. So hopefully that answers what you need to know about Jean Jacques Rousseau and his role in the Enlightenment period. Remember, his book is The Social Contract. Men are born free, yet everywhere are in chains. That society is what's corrupting man, not man corrupting society. And that people created a social contract between individual people and the sovereign collective, that direct democracy was the best way to go, where everybody gets a vote, and that laws should benefit the common good and the general will, not just the individuals, and that it's important to maintain a balance between our hearts and our minds. Take care.